We live a simple life out here in the wilderness of Tennessee. Yes, Tennessee, that land of such bold contradictions. So lovely and so ugly all at once. Places like Kentucky or even North Carolina know how to be quietly beautiful. But Tennessee has to always throw in a few spices of murder and mayhem and backcountry redneck dirt to give the place some kick. These people can't live without their kick. They are addicted to the savor of boiling, steaming sweat, and they like to keep their pot going just barely to the point of exploding. And just then, and only then, do they dial things back a bit and give a sheepish grin and slyly and grudgingly take a seat. Our camper sits outside of Grandpa's house out here in the rolling hills of Loudon. This place used to be all woods and foothills. You can tell by the handful of lingering fat old trees that still dot the landscape. Momentous mementos of some bygone native era, when long-haired fellows roamed about with bows and arrows and made villages down by the river. Now it all kind of looks like some English countryside with sheep and pigs and fluffy dogs and orchards and old farmers. Grandpa bought this land decades ago after moving out here from California. It was all part of his Cracker Barrel bonanza fantasy fever dream, that old American mythology that afflicts so many. He has left the land off and on over the years, once to go work a job for the government in Guam and then in Hawaii. He also lived in Nashville for a while. I married his daughter 20 years ago. We got married just down the road from here at the old church with the cemetery and the nice view of the mountains. Our wedding was kind of funny and weird and a bit puzzling to most who attended, complete with weird 70s folk music to walk down the aisle to and wedding rings from the local hippie store that only cost $20. I have always been the guy who mows the lawn around here and makes the fires. And since I got here, I grew up out in those mountains yonder. I look out over the valley in wintertime and see them towering up out there in the distance all covered in snow. It makes me sort of melancholy. You see, the mountain folk are a bit different than the humans who inhabit these farms. It's a different culture, believe it or not, only 30 or 40 miles distant. The mountain folk are rough and independent and standoffish. When the Confederates came through here, back during the Civil War, they knew better than to mess around with those people. The mountain folk had no use for slavery. They were always too busy surviving. I make fires. A while back, my sister-in-law invited some of her fine friends over for dinner. Fine people with a fine family. Later in the evening, they all went for a walk to see what was happening outside. I had a massive tower of dead branches and old weeds stacked up in the center of the field. They had been sitting there for quite some time. And just as these fine people came out to take the evening country air, I flicked a match upon some fresh gasoline that I had poured out all along the ground around the pile. Out here, fire is just part of life, a method of molding the landscape, getting rid of brush, staying warm. But these people were shocked to see the sudden ball of flame bursting out into the darkness. It made a massive explosive sound and scared them off almost immediately. They never did come back. A bobcat emerged from the wilderness last night, screeching out like a stabbed witch. We were just about to go to sleep when I sat up in bed and said, "What is that?" A wretched, repeated, agonizing noise sounded like it was coming from up on the hill, up where the horses live. The old horses that the old man keeps for some reason, even though he never rides them or does much of anything with them. Just throws blankets over them in the winter and lets them wander about the fields in the snow, looking bored but content. The screeching of the bobcat continues in a rhythmic terror, almost like a mountain lion. There once were mountain lions in this part of the world, but they are all dead now. I recognized the sound of the bobcat. Once, back up in the mountains, our dog treed one. It sat up there in the top of the tree for a long time, making this same sad sound again and again until the dog got bored with it and wandered off. It then crawled down and made its way back up the mountains to some mysterious rocky lair that nobody will ever find. And just then a rifle shot rings out, just one, banging and cracking and echoing out into the spring night. Then only sudden silence. A few moments later, the spring peepers regain their composure and continue their muddy, soaring hymn to the stars. I guess winter is over. We keep thinking it is, but then it comes back for a day or two. The other evening, we took a trip over the mountains to Asheville and wandered about the streets, having a grand old time staring at all the fascinating people and their little shops. Hiker bums, washed-up hippies, poets, Rastafarians, world-weary musicians, outcast college dropouts, wannabe transients. It was hot out there. We actually had to take a break in the shade with our new pet rat, Darwin. We carry him around with us in a fanny pack. He is all white with red eyes and looks just like a laboratory rat. We saved him from the pet store. He was destined to be snake food, but now he is enjoying a leisurely existence, eating peas and crawling along the arms of children in the grass. There certainly were some cold days and nights this last winter, though. I burned through a whole stack of firewood piled higher than the main. All autumn I went around the yard with the chainsaw, cutting up old fallen locust trees and oak branches. I made quite a nice pile of wood. I remember feeling proud, seeing it all stacked up high, stacked and glowing with the lumber smell of potential survival and from the freezing wind. Every night I would go around and gather dry branches from the bottom of the cedar trees and come back in and light up the wood stove while Grandpa watched old westerns on the television. Then once the fire died down, I would wander out at midnight beneath the frigid white moon and gather more of that wood, until every bit of it was burned up. A giant stack of wood, and now it's all gone. That's life, I guess. It is rather sad. The other day, just down the road from here, some teenage boys were coming up from Chattanooga on the interstate in a stolen car. The police were in hot pursuit, as they very often are in this day and age. The boys must have panicked. They pulled off on the I-75 bridge that goes over the Tennessee River, and they leapt out and over and down 80 feet, plunging into the cold, deep water. I cannot imagine what possessed them to do such a thing. Getting arrested isn't all that bad. I have gone to jail a couple of times. The worst thing is the lousy food. In fact, when you have a camper full of screaming kids, jail can even be a bit of a relaxing vacation. Perhaps these guys had watched one too many movies or internet sensational tidbits. And once you make that leap into the abyss, it is only down and down and down. They found one of the bodies the other night, going up and down the banks in boats and diving with fancy gadgets. Me and the family park our car a mile away and set off on foot for the river. The river is surprisingly difficult to access. Very often near bodies of water, there are many wealthy people who put up fences with signs everywhere saying private property, keep out. And somewhere beyond the signs, there are massive, mysterious homes where some tired old couples reside a few months out of the year. They are never seen or even heard. Perhaps they do not even exist. Nobody knows for sure. We park along a country road a mile away and set off bushwhacking into the weeds and woods beneath the power lines. A power company owns this stretch of land. We follow the deer deep into the thick growth toward the water. Why are we out here? I'm not sure really. Perhaps we just want to help out in some way. Perhaps we are morbidly curious. I almost give up. These are some thick thorns and brush, a place where humans are perhaps not meant to be. I look back and see the family coming along in the afternoon sunlight as it dances upon the deep green of the April leaves. Then I feel a cool breeze. The river is just up ahead. We finally arrive. There is a massive bridge hewn from concrete and steel with an endless line of cars and trucks buzzing overhead. Down below the bridge, it feels almost like a cave. I wonder how the unhoused folks can stand to sleep in a place such as this with all the noise. We are tired and hot, and so we sit on the rocks by the river with the dogs and look out at the vast expanse of filthy water, trash piled up high upon its edges, blown down the hill from the passing motorists. One of the most polluted rivers in the world. We wonder silently what could have made these boys do this. The smell of death hangs heavy. It festers in the mosquito-ridden dirt and vines that creep along the rocky bank. We don't stay long. Just say a silent prayer to the gods of youth and passion and sigh a sad sigh for the tragedy of youthful potential and vibrancy lost with a fat old cop on its tail. Lost to the muddy depths of mediocrity and tired, washed-up silence. Farewell, lost young ones. We decide to walk back along the interstate and avoid those ticks and those thickets and brambles. I worry that somebody might wonder just what in heaven's name we are doing out here and call the police on us. It's not every day you see whole families walking along the highway. We finally get back over the grassy hill and back to the car, and a woman drives up suddenly beside us. "Are you guys okay?" she asks. "Yes, we are," we reply. "Are you part of the search for those boys?" "That was sad, wasn't it?" "Yes, it was sad," we reply. "And no, we aren't part of the official search. We just thought we would help out if we could. Thanks for asking."